Hello, my name is Jason Vogel, and I'm with the Biosystems and Agricultural Engineering Department at Oklahoma State University. This is a series of 3 videos about natural stream restoration. The first video is about healthy streams and what makes them work and what makes them healthy. The second video is about things that can make the stream unhealthy, what can degrade the banks and destroy the habitat. And the final video is about tools and methods that we can utilize to restore the stability of the stream bank while returning the habitat to the stream.
This is how most of us experience a stream. You drive over one and probably never give it a second thought. What looks like a peaceful, never-changing scene is actually an aquatic habitat teeming with activity.
Well, streams and creeks and rivers are really the lifeblood of the community when you think about it. They're a place where people go to recreate, to fish, to enjoy nature. They use them for rafting, they use it for fishing. And so the quality of the stream and the creek really improves the overall community quality, or the quality of life.
Fish are swimming, plants are growing, and water is flowing.
Streams are very important because they're where all the water that runs off the landscape come together, and they're flowing downhill, and they're providing habitat, they're providing recreational areas, and they're providing important ecosystems for our landscape. But streams are constantly changing, and what we're trying to do is get that change to be in balance, where the amount of soil, sediment, dirt, other things that are coming into the stream are equal to what's moving out.
Balance is our goal. And now what happens when that balance changes? A stream might accumulate more sediment. More solid materials in the water means poor water quality. Sedimentation is the #1 water quality issue in the United States. Other areas of the stream could lose more soil, which can lead to loss of land as stream banks begin to break down.
One of the big reasons that people become concerned about the streams and rivers on their properties is that there's erosion occurring on the stream banks, which really impairs the use of their property for recreation, for access to the stream.
So how does a stream fall out of balance? It happens several ways. In ag areas, grazing cattle can remove all the vegetation from the stream banks. And many times, human influences can affect the balance of a stream. Streams adjust to changes in the land, such as urbanization, which occurs when development expands into rural areas.
So also, as a result of urbanization, excess soil and sediment within the stream can go downstream and settle out in our downstream reservoirs that are all used for recreation, flood control, and drinking water. So all of those uses are compromised. In addition, we can lose valuable land across the landscape from our rural areas and also from our urban areas, and compromise our urban infrastructure.
When streams become degraded, they can be restored to a natural balance. Their functional state can be brought back using natural stream restoration techniques. Stream restoration involves controlling the flow and speed of the water.
So to help understand how water flows in the stream, let's think about driving down a road. On a straight road, you can go faster because you have no obstacles in your way.
Just like on a straight road, the flow of water in a straight stream is very fast. Again, there's nothing in its way to slow it down.
But when we're driving on a curvy road, if we don't slow down, momentum is going to take us right off the road and into the ditch.
Water is the same way. The curves or meanders of a stream slow down the flow. What about a bumpy road? You still can't drive fast. The uneven surface forces you to drive slower. Now imagine that coarse, rough bottom of the stream. What happens? The uneven stream bed causes turbulence in the flow. The water can no longer take a straight path. An artificially smooth stream bed is not healthy for the stream or habitat. There's nothing to slow down the water, which in turn creates more opportunities for erosion downstream. The slope of a stream is also crucial.
The flow and speed of water are important because water always flows downhill. For example, this hill behind me is very steep. If I were to drive the truck straight down the hill without riding the brake, I would probably lose control and crash.
Slope is the amount of fall over the length of the run. Because the curves or meanders make the road longer, the slope is lessened. It's the same idea with a stream. You add some curves, lessen the slope of the stream bed, and as a result, you slow down the flow of the water. Remember, natural streams are not straight. They have a meandering flow. The curves, or meanders, slow down the water so velocity is reduced and the force is not there. Another way streams control flow is through their structure. Streams naturally form riffles and pools. The riffle is the part of the stream of the greatest slope and it's very shallow. At the bottom of the slope is a pool. It's a large, deep area of relatively still water. This is where fish and plant life thrive within a stream. Further down the stream, this pattern of riffles and pools will repeat. The riffles are the areas of the fastest moving water. Water is moving at a high velocity, so the sediment and other particles in the water are on the move. When water reaches the deeper pools, the velocity slows, which in turn slows down the sediment. Some of the particles will settle out here. The process of sediment movement within the stream is called sediment transport.
When a stream is healthy, that process will be in equilibrium, meaning that the amount of sediment that's coming down the stream and depositing will be equal to the amount that's being moved downstream.
The balance that we're looking for in a stream is in sediment transport. Relatively equal amounts going out and coming in. A stream is a dynamic system. Even one that is in balance will change, just slowly.
Generally, when we look at healthy natural streams, they move on the order of a few inches every decade. Unhealthy and unstable streams move several feet every year, and sometimes in large storm events they can dramatically shift and change.
A healthy stream has a vigorous stream bank habitat. There should be a mix of plants, which stabilize the bank and also provide a home and a food source for life within the stream. The habitat needs slow-moving water to thrive. That means a stream with lots of meanders and pools.
So our meanders are slowing the water down, but to keep that meandering stream stable, we need to utilize structures within the bank that use things such as sticks and logs and rocks and living plants and other natural materials. And while we're doing that, we're providing habitat for the organisms within the stream, such as macroinvertebrates like insects and bugs and snails and all the fish community that lives within the stream.
So in general, a meandering stream is healthy because it has lots of diversity in bed form, and it has diversity of habitats for different types of animals, including fish, including the insects that live in the stream that the fish eat, and including mussels and other animals that depend on that flow.
Slower water encourages the life cycle of the animals, insects, and plants that live within the bank habitat. Coming up next is When Good Streams Go Bad. We'll take a closer look at what happens when a stream is no longer in balance. Part 3 in this series will show the techniques and steps for natural stream restoration. Generally, good streams don't become bad streams by themselves. What happens when we attempt to control the stream without understanding its natural tendencies?
So generally, good streams don't turn into bad streams by themselves. Problems occur when we attempt to control the natural tendency of the stream with concrete or other man-made materials that confine the stream and completely stabilize the bank, such as with this channel right here.
We're talking about various hard surface control techniques such as concrete, riprap, gabions, and culverts. As our cities have grown, we have often tried to control streams by encasing them in concrete. The concrete may control the stream right at that location, but it often causes problems elsewhere, both upstream and downstream.
But as the water moves through here, the velocities increase, we get lots of energy. And that's fine as it's moving through the channel, but then we reach the end of the channel and we have this high energy, and the water moves out of the channel and it moves into the area where we have soil, and you'll often have to try to reinforce this with big chunks of concrete or other rocks. As it continues to move downstream, there's still lots and lots of energy hitting that far bank, and we're getting lots of erosion, lots of soil loss from that area, and that continues down the channel, and then it meets another main channel, and that high energy, that high flow is still there. We're getting our downcutting and our erosion, our habitat degradation in those areas as well, and that's all a result of these concrete channels that move water quickly off the landscape into our streams.
Lining a stream in concrete can cause more problems than it solves. And it's not just concrete. Look around at cities and urban areas. You'll see many impervious surfaces. Big stretches of asphalt, rooftops, and even compacted dirt roads and parking lots increase the flow of water into the watershed. These hard surfaces cause another problem, and that's increased velocity. A smooth concrete channel allows the water to build up velocity, increasing the downstream erosion potential and impairing habitats for fish and other aquatic animals.
So to understand why confining water in a concrete channel or culvert may cause more erosion, let's think about washing our car with a garden hose. If you take your garden hose with a normal flow and run it over your car, you may or may not get all of the dirt off of your car. If you take your thumb, put it over the garden hose, and lessen the amount of area that the water flows through, the velocity increases, the force increases, and it's probably going to wash all the dirt off of your car.
And the smaller space for the water, the harder and faster the flow. Erosion is when the force on the stream bottom material is greater than the cohesive forces of the material. Every concrete channel is going to constrict the flow of a stream at some point over its course, particularly during a heavy rain event. The water speeds down the concrete with no opportunity to spread out or slow down. Natural streams and rivers have floodplain. This is the area adjacent to the stream. During heavy rains, water rises up and spreads out over the floodplain, slowing it down. The floodplain is a critical component of the stream system that dissipates energy during floods and reduces problems downstream. A heavily eroded stream can become detached from its floodplain through a process called downcutting. Downcutting is when swift water erodes the stream bed, creating a deeper channel. At the same time, the sides of the stream begin to erode in a process we call widening. Widening can occur from the detachment of particles from the stream bank, or very quickly from mass wasting, where large chunks of soil are lost to the stream during high flows.
So as our stream downcuts and widens as a result of the erosion processes that are going on during our storms, it's detached from the floodplains, which can cause a lot of issues, including loss of land, which is very important for our landowners.
I believe that in one particular, and it wasn't a huge flood, but in one shot, I think we lost over 50 feet about 2 or 3 years ago. And so it's been continually going downhill, literally.
This erosion almost wiped out the road along the river and threatened a riverside park.
Well, over on this side nearest our park, we had a sheer drop off, and we had dangerous trees in the water where you couldn't hardly get a canoe in or out. Not a very good environment for recreation.
The erosion makes the river less accessible and further detaches it from the floodplain.
It affects the quality of fishing, boating on the water, and it affects downstream water quality because all of this water carries sediment downstream to other properties and to lakes and reservoirs where we may have some problems there with water quality.
When sediment washes away from landscapes or farmland, it brings with it nutrients and other materials that act as pollutants in the stream.
In addition to sediment being a pollutant in and of itself, many of the pollutants that come off of our landscape like to stick to sediment. So as we have an increased sediment load coming down the stream, that sediment will be moved downstream. And in Oklahoma, most of our streams lead to a reservoir that are often used for recreational purposes and for drinking water and lots of other uses.
The increase in contaminants such as nutrients and heavy metals will degrade the quality of our downstream reservoirs, causing conditions like algae blooms and decreasing the quality of our drinking water.
We work with nature. We don't try to resist the forces that nature naturally has moving through a meandering valley. We actually work with that, and we allow those forces to create the scour areas, the pools, provide the riffles, the runs, the glides, but we recognize that there are processes that we can help with.
Coming up in our next segment, working with nature to manage creeks and streams. How do you bring a stream back into balance? How do you restore its biological health?
By using natural stream design, we're actually assisting the stream to heal itself when it's sick and not feeling well, restoring some of the natural biological processes such as increasing the number of different kinds of fish that you see in the stream, the number of different kinds of bugs. A sick stream won't have a ton of them, but a healthy stream will.
The more you can mimic nature, the more successful you'll be.
The concept we're applying here is very simply applying natural materials, understanding natural processes, letting nature do its part to protect streams, and managing the energy of the river in a way that works with nature instead of trying to armor the banks and resist nature.
Stream restoration is a process. First, define the objectives for the stream. Is it flood control? Stream bank stability? Improving access to the stream? Improving habitat? You need to understand what you hope to accomplish. It is often possible to achieve multiple objectives with your restoration project. Next, assess the stream. Take a close look at what's going on at that particular site. Is there downcutting or widening? Is the stream bank vegetation healthy and plentiful? Has something changed in the watershed upstream? Or is something constricting the flow downstream? Once you've determined your objective and assessed the stream, you have to decide what is your best course of action. In some cases, removing local stressors such as cattle grazing, stormwater pipes, or culverts, and replacing mowed turf grasses with native, deep-rooted plants may sufficiently improve the quality of the stream channel. However, if you decide that removing local stressors and revegetation is not enough, then you must work with qualified professionals and appropriate regulators, such as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, to design and later construct the restored stream channel. No matter which choice you make, you still need to monitor the stream and maintain it in a form that meets your objectives. Natural stream restoration includes 3 parts: reshaping the channel and floodplain, building in-stream structures, and protecting the banks. To begin restoring a stream, first you have to reshape it, moving dirt and rocks to establish a more natural stream channel and floodplain. Reshaping can start with grading banks, creating benches and more gentle slopes. This will reconnect the stream to its floodplain and help slow the water during rain events. The redesign of the stream may mean adding meanders to a straight stream or creating riffles and pools. For some streams, regrading is not enough. Veins are structures built into the channel to control the flow and redirect the water. This configuration of rocks or other materials helps lessen the slope of the stream and moves water away from the banks. The first type of vein we'll look at is called a cross vein.
So we can utilize our vein technology to keep water in the middle of the channel in areas where both banks are vulnerable, whether we have infrastructure or other things on the sides of the bank that we don't want to have erosion at. The cross vein uses our large rocks that are large enough to not be washed away by the energy of our high flows, and we create sort of a V structure that's at a 20 to 30 degree angle from the banks, and they are tied into the banks perpendicular here underneath the ground. You can see these footer boulders that are utilized to keep the bottom structure of our cross vein stable. We have our 2 to 5 degree elevation change here where the water's higher, it moves up and moves over back towards the middle. And then as we move to the upstream end of our cross vein, we have what's called the invert. This is the lowest elevation of our cross vein. It moves into a pool. This is an area that's deeper, there's really great habitat, and you get a lot of turbulence, a lot of energy dissipation, especially during your high flows. This one is a double step cross vein, so as we move into our second step, it allows us once again to have that turbulence, that energy dissipation, that great habitat in the second pool, and then from that second pool it'll move up and out into a riffle. So another in-stream structure that's similar to our cross vein is our J-hook that once again has two different functions. It's going to serve as grade control to lower our slope, and it's also going to help us to deflect water from a vulnerable bank. Our J-hook is utilized to move water away from only one bank as opposed to the cross vein that moves water away from two banks. So what we want to do once again is we're going to have our slight slope here on our vulnerable bank side, and this right here is a log J-hook. It can be also constructed of rocks. It's going to be tied in up there at the downstream end of the J-hook and then tied in back into the stream bank. So as the water moves up this vulnerable side, it goes up the slope, up the log, and then it's moved back into the center of the stream where it creates this pool. This pool is once again great habitat for lots of little critters, macroinvertebrates, that type of thing. We're installing this with rocks so that we have little areas in between here that the fish and critters can still get upstream during base flow. This is especially important in some other parts of the country where you have critters that go upstream for spawning and that type of thing. And then on the side away from the critical bank, we have our lower part of the J that's made of rocks here, and it's actually tied way back into the bank all the way to the trees so that during high flow, when there's a lot of energy on the bed and on this point bar, it's not going to get washed away. In larger rivers such as this, a J-hook may not be practical or even beneficial because of the large amount of energy that is involved with this amount of water. If we installed a J-hook in this area, we would have the hook part of the J-hook out in the middle of the river where the highest energy is, and the size of boulders required for that type of installation would be impractical and very, very expensive. So instead of that, we utilize something called a barb like we have here. And what the barb does is use the same type of technology as the J-hook to move the water slightly upslope and dump it back away from the vulnerable bank into the middle of the stream, thereby protecting that bank from the high shear stress that would be involved with the higher flow. So a different type of in-stream structure is known as towwood. And towwood is really great for stabilizing the outer edge of meander where you have that vulnerable area where the stream bottom joins the bank. So what we're doing on this is utilizing logs and sticks and different brush from around this restoration site that we buried 6 to 8 feet within the bank, and it provides all these little crevices for the little critters and fish and things like that to live. It also provides structure and things that disrupt the flow at the bottom of the stream in the deep part of the stream where the most energy is. Over time, these sticks are going to degrade, but we also utilize live plants to create this towwood, so they are going to sprout and create a tree line along the bottom of our stream bank that will stabilize it over the long term.
After reshaping the stream channel, there will be a period of time when extra stream bank protection is needed. Think about bank protection in 3 steps. Temporary measures, such as matting, that hold the freshly restored bank in place. Then, some quick, short-term plantings, and finally, the vegetation that's going to be there over the long term.
One of the first things we want to do on a new stream bank stabilization is to protect the bank from erosion. Here we do that with with straw. The straw is going to reduce the impact of the raindrops as it hits the surface, and also as the soil gets wet, that straw will kind of incorporate into the soil and hold it in place. Down here within the channel where the water will be flowing, this coir matting, which is made of coconut fiber, helps us to reduce the amount of stress that hits the bank and holds that soil in place underneath the matting. The matting will also give us some structure for vegetation to grow through as the site matures.
If you have done a stream bank stabilization project and you have essentially bare soil banks, the first thing you need to do is put a quick growing grass on those banks to protect it from any waterfall, any rain events that come through. Then you need to begin to think about what plants you want to put into those areas to further stabilize them, to really get the root systems going. Plants that are adapted to aquatic systems typically have extensive root systems for that very fact.
That vegetation over time puts in roots that act as rebar and hold soil in place. It helps bind that soil to resist erosion.
You want a mix of vegetation along the bank: grasses, shrubs, and trees.
Things like Bermuda and fescue, which are great for pasture, are not good for stream banks because they have little short root systems. So what we like to see planted right along the bank are things like big and little blue stem, Indian grasses. Blue stem can have a root structure 8 feet tall. So it's really going down and holding all of that in place.
And those roots will help lock that soil and gravel in place so that during future floods, the roots are helping hold the soil, and the plants that are growing above ground help slow the water down, taking away some of the energy that would be causing erosion, leaving most of the flow energy out in the main channel.
There are plants that thrive exceptionally well with their feet wet. So we look to put things like willows and other wetland type plants right up at the toe of the stream so that they can sprout and really vigorously grow to start holding the soil in place.
We're talking about trees that prefer being in close proximity to water, that during times of flood when the waters come up, instead of washing out around the root balls, the plants themselves will actually bend with the floodwaters, and then when the floodwaters recede, they'll pop back up.
Trees also provide a number of other benefits for a stream, including things you might not think about. For example, trees cool down the water. Why is that important?
Trees themselves will shade the stream, lowering the water temperature. Many fish species are dependent upon a certain range of temperatures before they can reproduce. And so it's important that they have those conditions so that you can have a growing population. They also allow for the water itself to hold more oxygen, which once again, if you're a fish or a bug, or as scientists will call them, macroinvertebrates living inside the stream, that's important too. You need something to breathe.
Leaves also, as they fall into a stream, serve as the very base of the food web so that we get that carbon input that we need for a healthy ecosystem to support the aquatic insects and a healthy fisheries.
There are certain aquatic insects called shredders that begin to cut up those leaves and chew on them and eat them, and then there are another 2 or 3 suites of different insects that will continue to break those leaves down.
Native plants can give you a head start on revegetating the banks.
And another key in selecting those plants is to simply look around and see what already grows there in areas up and down that stream.
Those native plants we know are supposed to be here because they're all around us. They will get established and grow quickly, plus they serve as that critical wildlife habitat and important habitat, even leaf quality for streams, for the insects in the streams and decomposition rates.
Some non-native plants can be invasive and outcompete the beneficial plants that are vital for a healthy riparian ecosystem.
What we want to fight against strongly are the invasive exotics that move in quickly when we have disturbed areas. So managing for native species and actively trying to remove and slow down the spread of invasive exotics is a critical element of these projects.
All this work can be done to restore a stream, but it will take the continuing growth of plant life to make it a success.
Plants above ground and below ground help serve important processes for stream restoration.
Restoring stream stability and function requires working with qualified professionals in a multi-step process of assessment, design, proper construction, and long-term monitoring and maintenance. This design may include grading to reconnect the floodplain, in-stream structures for stabilization and to decrease the slope of the stream bottom, and lots of vegetation. To achieve success, this type of restoration requires vigilance to ensure plant establishment, especially during the first few years after construction. Additionally, these methods need to be integrated with watershed-based plans and stormwater management on the landscape. Major changes to the watershed can impact your stream restoration. By working together, we can ensure that the natural beauty and function of our streams can be enjoyed for generations to come.